Here are two pictures of a drawer filled with stationery. Can the audience tell me which option shows the correct way to organize your drawer? You can scan the QR code on the screen, and I'll wait for around 15 seconds for you guys to do so. Unfortunately, I won't be able to display the results online, but I do have the live poll in front of me here. So I'll wait for you guys to do that. OK, so currently, I can see that 73% of the audience sitting here chose option 2. And yeah, I would have picked that option as well. But let's pause for a moment, and let's go back to the question that I asked. Which option shows the correct way to organize your drawer? Correct. Free from error. In accordance with fact or truth. But is it a fact that option 2 is the better way to organize your drawer? Or is it an opinion? How can you distinguish between the two? Because I think that putting pineapples on pizza is a war crime, but does everyone else sitting here also think the same way? Probably not, right? So who decides what is correct and what is not? Who decides what is normal and what is not? Hold that thought, and let's take our discussion forward with another example. So I was recently watching this movie. It's called Yours, Mine, and Ours. It's a 2000s film about how a man with 8 kids, Frank, falls in love with a woman with 10 kids, God bless her, Helen, and they decide to live together. Now, here's a snapshot from the movie. Frank is asking Helen whether she needs help organizing her studio. For context, this is what her studio looked like. As you can see, art materials everywhere. Things placed on the table with no particular factors that distinguish them, and an overall chaotic place that not a lot of people would be able to work in. But for Helen, this is what she needed in order to thrive. This setting helped ignite her creativity, and she knew where everything was, so she was able to function really well here. Frank, on the other hand, required things to be orderly and clean, and he had proper semantics for everything that he did, which he very rigidly stuck to. But what's one person's chaos can be another person's clean, right? And in the same way, what's one person's clean can be another person's chaos. And we saw that when their 18 kids decided to clean Helen's studio up as in the form of a surprise, and when Helen saw that, she exclaimed that she can't work with clean. Does that mean that Helen is wrong? Or is Frank wrong? What's your image of clean or organized? Is there a correct way to organize your studio, your workspace, your drawer, or your life? Ladies and gentlemen, the answer is no. Let me introduce you to the concept of neurodiversity. Just like the letters in this font, neurodiversity talks about how being different is okay, but this time it brings science into the play. More specifically, the human brain, the organ that controls everything we do, from the way we talk, to the way we walk, to the way we react to anything. But did you know that your brain and my brain is not the same? And I mean to say that they are structurally different. If I may direct your attention towards the screen, now these look super cool, but they were super difficult to understand. But if you can see, this is an image taken of the brain from the same angle of 3 different people showing the same region of the brain. If you see what's circled in red, it's the same structure, but you may call it a butterfly-like structure, or I may call it something else, but you see that there is an inherent difference in the way that structure is seen in the scan. Let me show you another example. This is a functional MRI. The orange parts show how activated your brain is in response to certain stimuli. Now here, there were people with ADHD and without ADHD who were exposed to the same stimulus. And upon exposure, you can see that there is a significant difference in the orange parts, orange regions of the brain for those with ADHD as compared to those without. This is what they call hyperactivation. And you know why it takes place? Because the innate neurology of our brain is different. Just like 2 fingerprints, no 2 brains can be identical. not even for identical twins. So if the central integrating system of our body in itself is not the same for everyone, then how can we decide and place a standard for what is normal and what is not? Are we even capable of doing so? Remember Ishan from Tare Zameen Par? Or Dory from Finding Dory? Or even Percy Jackson from the famous franchise? Ishan suffered from dyslexia, Dory had amnesia and displayed signs of autism, and Percy Jackson was dyslexic and had ADHD. They were all shamed by society and, well, fishes in the ocean for being different, for not conforming to this idea of normal that everyone is so crazy to fit into. But truth of the matter is, what works for one person just may not work for another. But that's okay. If you function differently, you're not wrong. If you're good at something, but you're also if you're bad at something, but you're also really good at something else, you're not undesired. It's just a matter of stranger brains. And while neurodiversity is about this, it also goes one step further. Let me show you how. Imagine this rectangle is a rigid, confined structure of society, and if you step outside of the rectangle, you're going to be different in a way that society will not accept. Let's assume that. Now, there are people who are already standing inside the rectangle. They didn't have to deliberately try to fit in, They just happen to have qualities and characteristics that align with what the rectangle wanted of them. That's you and I, assuming there's no neurodivergent person sitting with us in the audience today. And then there are people outside the rectangle. What neurodiversity talks about is that those who are standing inside the rectangle, they push it from within, and they mold it to make it bigger, symbolically making it more open and more accepting to a new idea, a new person, a new concept, or a new thing. And at the end, you now have the people outside standing inside the rectangle, but they didn't have to change themselves. All you had to do was change this. That is the essence of neurodiversity. Acknowledging, but also embracing those who are different from us. So if you and I went to the same party, and you were standing in the corner because you were terrified you were going to make any interaction awkward, while I was talking to every single person I saw, that's okay. Your unique experiences make you an individual. They shape your personality in a way that is different from others, and I think that's pretty cool. But why am I speaking about all of this? It's not like I have any of these conditions, so can I speak for them? And you're right, I can't. But my aim here, standing on the stage today, is to foster a community such that when they do speak up for themselves, they do it without the fear of being reprimanded by society for it. Think of that child in your neighborhood who is really good at drawing or painting, but they can't add numbers together if their life depended on it. Or think of that adult in your life who has terrible motor skills. They can't cut a sheet of paper in a straight line, they can't balance themselves properly, but if you give them something or someone to act out, they'll do it really well. If you can't place people like this in your lives, let me give you an auditory example. The rustle of a shopping bag, falling of coins on the floor, rubbing of balloons against each other, slurping a drink. Is that what you heard? Because to me, that sounded like the climax of an action movie. But that is how an autistic person hears the world around them. Do you understand? They're existing in a world that was not made for them. So the least we can do is create an edition that is more supportive of them. Instead of scolding the child for saying 1 + 1 = a window, why don't you tell them that they're going to become a great artist or painter someday? Instead of mocking the adult for having worse motor skills than they should at their age, why don't you motivate them to try out stand-up comedy or acting, because it's never too late. Try to appreciate the qualities that get elevated in someone who is neurodivergent, while subsequently acknowledging the effort they're putting into improving things that they might not be the best at. Because I promise you, they are trying. So instead of acting in a potentially discriminatory manner towards them in a social setting, let them feel like they can coexist in the same community as us without forcibly confronting the fact that they might not be normal. You know, it's a cliched idea to address the problem from its root, but changing our mentality is the entire reason for the existence of neurodivergence as a concept. And I'll tell you why with the help of a personal anecdote. So my cousin recently got diagnosed with autism at the age of 23. And when he told me this, in my mind something clicked. I thought to myself, now it all makes sense. And that's the basic reaction that a lot of people have when they hear something like this about someone they're close to or someone they're friends with or someone who's their family. But why is it that I required a medical diagnosis in order for me to accept the behavior that my cousin was exhibiting? Why do we need to place people into categories and classify them into subgroups just so we can understand them? Why do we want to fit into that rectangle so bad? Because it's not a rule, if it was, I'd be following it. So what is this inherent need to put a label on everything? Because this is not just a mental health issue that needs to be treated medically. It's a social issue, and it needs to be treated by uplifting our self-imposed social barriers. Neurodivergence may be a term for someone with a different mindset, but it doesn't mean to classify them into yet another category. Instead, it means to take them out of the forced social class that they have been placed in and let them express themselves without the fear of being judged. Ladies and gentlemen, difference does not equal disorder. And neither does it mean deficit. So let's stop treating it like one. And you know where we can begin? Don't call it a disorder. It's a word with negative connotations, and it can be really demeaning for someone to hear. So you start intrinsically, right? You start with yourself. Don't call it a disorder. Educate yourself. Knowledge is power. It can make you more understanding. It can make you more empathetic. Learn how to communicate. It can be that one qualifying factor that makes them feel more comfortable in their own skin in a setting that might not be their home. And finally, don't judge. Now you know that they have science backing it up, but you only have yourself. So don't judge. Once you understand, move on to your friends and your family. Advocate for neurodivergent people. When you hear a friend say, stop acting autistic, stop them right there. Remind them that it's not cool to be a hater. Spread kindness, spread knowledge, spread information, spread your developed communication skills. When you tell 5 people, those 5 people tell 5 more people, and suddenly you have a community that is more understanding, more supportive, and more empathetic. And finally, adapt your environment. Supply specific organizational tools which will help them focus and optimize their time. Give them extra time if they need it for certain tasks, if they wish for it. And try to avoid placing things that might be distractors, like a clicker pen. Try to avoid placing these things around them if they wish to be focused or if they wish to spend their time efficiently. In this way, you can build an environment that actually incorporates the perspectives of everyone. And that can only happen when you digress from the conventional definition of normal that has been ingrained in your and my mind. I urge you, forget normal and embrace the differences. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to spend its entire life thinking it's stupid. Don't force a neurodivergent person to climb a tree. Let them swim and see how they turn their neurodivergence into a superpower. Thank you.